Night settles quietly over the narrow streets of early 20th century New York when the city still breathes like a restless animal learning how powerful it can become. Gas lamps flicker against brick walls, casting long shadows that stretch across alleys slick with rain and ambition. In these streets, power is not announced with speeches or uniforms. It is earned with silence, fear, and an instinct for survival. Somewhere among these dark corners, a boy is growing up, who will learn very early that mercy is a weakness and control is the only currency that matters. Lepke Buchalter enters the world without ceremony, born into a city that rewards the ruthless and forgets the gentle. His childhood is shaped not by comfort, but by absence. Authority comes and goes, guidance fades, and the streets fill the gap. New York at this time is not a place that waits for anyone to mature. It teaches its lessons quickly and harshly. Hunger sharpens the mind, and fear becomes a constant companion. Young Louis learns how to read faces, how to sense danger before it arrives, and how to disappear when necessary. These skills are not taught in schools. They are absorbed through observation and necessity. As the city grows upward with steel and concrete, its underworld grows sideways, spreading quietly through unions, warehouses, and back rooms. Crime is not glamorous here. It is practical. Theft puts food on the table. Intimidation keeps rivals away. Violence, when used carefully, solves problems permanently. Louis watches older boys command respect with nothing more than their reputation. He notices how people step aside for them, how doors open without knocking. Power, he realizes, does not require permission. By his teenage years, Louis is no longer just surviving. He is participating. Small crimes become stepping stones, petty theft, street hustles, quiet intimidation. He is not loud or reckless. He listens more than he speaks. While others chase attention, Louis studies systems. He sees how businesses depend on delivery schedules, how workers depend on wages, how fear can interrupt both. He begins to understand leverage. It is not about how strong you are, but about how many people depend on something you can disrupt. The nickname comes naturally. Lepke, short, sharp, and personal. A name that sounds almost harmless until it's spoken in the wrong tone. As Lepke grows older, the streets begin to recognize him, not as a thug, but as someone reliable, someone who finishes what he starts. He doesn't fight unless necessary, but when he does, it ends decisively. People remember that. New York's garment industry becomes a turning point. Factories hum day and night, producing clothing for a nation that is learning to consume faster than ever before. Behind the machines are workers, and behind the workers are unions. And behind the unions, there is opportunity. Lepke sees what others miss. If you control labor, you control production. If you control production, you control profit. It is a simple equation, but one that requires discipline and brutality to maintain. Rather than fighting business owners, Lepke positions himself as a solution. Strikes can be prevented. Deliveries can arrive on time. Workers can remain cooperative. All of this can be arranged for a price. Fear is applied selectively, like pressure on a wound. Enough to remind people who is in charge, never enough to draw unnecessary attention. This approach separates Lepke from the reckless criminals of his era. He is building something structured, something that resembles a corporation more than a gang. As his influence expands, alliances form naturally. Other criminals recognize his efficiency. They bring opportunities, connections, and protection. Lepke listens carefully, choosing partners with the same caution he uses when choosing enemies. Loyalty matters, but usefulness matters more. He believes trust should be tested, not assumed. This philosophy keeps him alive while others disappear into prison cells or unmarked graves. The city, meanwhile, continues its transformation. Prohibition looms, promising chaos disguised as morality. Law enforcement struggles to keep pace with crime that evolves faster than legislation. Corruption seeps into institutions meant to prevent it. Lepke understands that the law is not an obstacle. It is another system to be managed. Bribes are cheaper than bullets. Silence is more valuable than threats. Power changes people slowly. Lepke does not wake up one day as a monster. He becomes one through repetition. Each decision makes the next easier. Each act of violence dulls the weight of the last. He convinces himself that everything he does is necessary, that order requires force, that fear is simply another tool. This self-justification becomes armor, protecting him from doubt. By now, his name travels faster than he does. People who have never met him know exactly what he represents. Employers comply without argument. Union leaders fall in line. Rivals think twice before encroaching on his territory. Lepke does not need to be everywhere. His reputation arrives first. Yet beneath the control and calculation, there is tension. Power attracts attention, and attention attracts enemies. The same systems that allow Lepke to rise also create records, witnesses, and grudges. Every deal leaves a trace. Every act of intimidation plants a memory in someone who might one day talk. Lepke senses this, but confidence pushes the concern aside. He believes he is smarter than the system, faster than the law, and more disciplined than those who fail. At night, when the city finally quiets, Lepke reviews his empire in silence. He does not celebrate. Celebration invites carelessness. Instead, he plans expansion, consolidation, control. He sees his operation not as criminal, but as inevitable. Someone will always fill the vacuum. He simply intends to be the one who does it best. What Lepke does not fully grasp yet is that history has a way of demanding payment. Power borrowed from fear must eventually be repaid with consequences. The city that helped shape him is also learning how to fight back, slowly, building the tools that will one day close in around men like him. For now, though, Lepke stands firmly in control, a quiet force moving through the shadows of New York, convinced that his grip on the underworld is unbreakable. The story is only beginning, and the path ahead is darker, more complex, and far more dangerous than the streets that raised him. Morning in New York arrives without apology. The city does not stretch or yawn, it erupts. Doors slam, engines cough to life, and the sidewalks fill with people chasing wages, opportunity, or escape. Somewhere within this constant movement, Lepke Buchalter is no longer a boy shaped by the streets. He is becoming something sharper, more deliberate, molded by patterns only he seems to notice. As Lepke steps deeper into the machinery of the city, his understanding of power matures. Violence alone, he learns, is inefficient. It creates noise. Noise brings attention. Attention brings consequences. The men who last are not the loudest, but the ones who make their presence felt without being seen. Lepke begins to operate with a restraint that others mistake for weakness. In reality, it is calculation. The garment district becomes his proving ground. Buildings packed tightly together hum with activity from dawn until night. Trucks arrive loaded with fabric and leave heavy with finished clothing. Time is money here, measured in minutes, not hours. Any disruption costs thousands, sometimes more. Lepke understands that fear works best when it targets schedules instead of people. A delayed shipment here, a stalled workforce there. The message travels faster than fists ever could. He surrounds himself with men who follow instructions precisely. No freelancing. No impulsive brutality. Every action must serve a purpose. Those who fail to follow rules do not last long. Lepke does not shout or threaten. He replaces. That quiet finality builds a culture of discipline around him. His organization begins to resemble a business more than a gang, with roles clearly defined and expectations unspoken but absolute. Union leaders start to recognize a shift. Where once they negotiated with factory owners, now there is a third presence hovering just out of sight. Lepke offers stability. No strikes, no slowdowns, no unexpected inspections. In return, dues flow smoothly and opposition fades. Some leaders accept willingly. Others resist. Resistance never lasts. It is not crushed dramatically, but erased, like chalk washed from a sidewalk after rain. Money begins to accumulate in ways Lepke anticipated. Not in flashy displays, but in steady streams. He reinvests carefully, spreading influence into transportation, warehousing, and supply chains. Each expansion is quiet, deliberate, and secured before it becomes visible. Rivals hear rumors but struggle to pinpoint his reach. By the time they do, it is already too late. Prohibition arrives like a gift wrapped in chaos. Alcohol does not disappear. It simply moves underground. Everyone wants a piece. Many rush in, drawn by fast money and blind confidence. Lepke watches them make mistakes. He does not rush. He studies routes, relationships, and risks. Bootlegging requires logistics, not bravado. Warehouses, drivers, protection, and silence. Lepke already controls most of that infrastructure. When he finally steps in, he does so with efficiency that surprises even seasoned criminals. The city's underworld begins to reorganize itself around him. Meetings happen in back rooms where words are chosen carefully. Lepke speaks less than anyone else at the table, but when he does, conversations end. His authority does not come from fear alone, but from reliability. Deals made with him are honored. Debts owed are collected without drama. Problems are solved permanently. Law enforcement struggles to adapt. Arrests are made, but rarely stick. Witnesses forget details. Evidence goes missing. Judges receive envelopes without names. Lepke does not consider this corruption. He considers it maintenance. Systems require upkeep. He ensures the right people are comfortable enough not to ask questions. Despite the growing empire, Lepke maintains a low profile. No newspaper interviews. No public displays of wealth. He understands that anonymity is protection. While others chase notoriety, he disappears into crowds wearing the same plainclothes, walking the same streets. This invisibility allows him to move freely while others are watched. But power always carries weight. The more Lepke controls, the more responsibility he bears. Every decision ripples outward, affecting dozens, sometimes hundreds of lives. He feels this pressure at night, when the city quiets and his thoughts grow louder. He does not regret his choices, but he recognizes the fragility of balance. One mistake could unravel years of careful construction. Trust becomes increasingly rare. Even among allies, Lepke assumes nothing. Loyalty is proven through action, not words. He tests people constantly, placing small obstacles in their path, watching how they respond. Those who pass are rewarded. Those who fail are removed quietly. This constant evaluation keeps his organization sharp, but it also isolates him. True companionship has no place in his world. The public remains largely unaware of his existence. To them, New York is booming, full of opportunity and excess. They do not see the invisible hands guiding labor, transportation, and supply. They do not hear the whispered warnings pass between factory floors and loading docks. Lepke prefers it that way. Power works best when it operates unnoticed. Yet signs of danger begin to emerge. Federal interest grows. Investigators start connecting patterns that once seemed unrelated. Disappearances, labor disputes resolved too cleanly, businesses changing hands without explanation. Lepke senses the shift. Like a pressure change before a storm, he responds by tightening control, reducing exposure, and eliminating unnecessary risks. Still, confidence remains. Lepke believes he has outpaced the system. He has survived poverty, violence, and betrayal. He has built an empire from fragments and fear. To him, this is not luck, but proof of superiority. The city tested him, and he prevailed. What he does not yet accept is that systems evolve. The same way he adapted to exploit weaknesses, others are learning to close them. The walls are not closing in yet, but they are being measured. The groundwork is being laid quietly, patiently, just as Lepke once did. For now, the streets remain under his control. Trucks move on schedule. Factories hum. Money flows upward and fear flows downward. Lepke Buchalter stands at the center of it all, calm, composed, and convinced that his careful silence will keep him untouchable. The city continues to move, unaware that its rhythm is being conducted by a man who believes he has mastered every note. The city at night feels different when you control it. For most people, darkness brings uncertainty and restlessness. For Lepke, night is clarity. The noise fades, the crowds thin, and patterns become visible. From office windows overlooking empty streets to quiet rooms thick with cigarette smoke, decisions are made that shape the lives of people who will never know his name. This is the space where Lepke thrives, where a strategy replaces instinct and patience becomes a weapon. His organization no longer relies on chance. It runs on routine. Every week follows a predictable rhythm, payments collected, routes monitored, disputes resolved before they escalate. The men beneath him understand the value of consistency. Chaos attracts attention, and attention is dangerous. Lepke reinforces this philosophy constantly, not with speeches but with consequences. Those who disrupt order vanish from the equation, their absence explained only through silence. The garment industry remains the backbone of his power, but it is no longer the only one. Transportation networks now answer to him indirectly. Truck drivers learn which routes are safest, which docks move fastest, and which warehouses never experience delays. The system works because it feels natural. No one is forced openly. People simply adapt, choosing the path of least resistance, unaware that the path was designed for them. Money flows steadily, and Lepke ensures it never pools too long in one place. Cash moves through layers, disguised as wages, fees, and expenses. He understands that still water attracts scrutiny. Motion, on the other hand, looks like business. Account books remain clean enough to survive a casual glance, messy enough to discourage deep inspection. It is a balance learned through observation and corrected through experience. As his influence expands, so does the complexity of his operation. Problems no longer come in the form of street fights or petty theft. They arrive as negotiations, betrayals, and shifting alliances. Lepke navigates these with careful detachment. Emotions are liabilities. He listens, weighs options, and acts only when the outcome is certain. Indecision can be as dangerous as recklessness, but Lepke avoids both. Other criminal figures begin to orbit closer. Some seek partnership, others protection. Lepke evaluates each one without sentiment. He values competence above loyalty and results above intentions. Those who bring value are absorbed into his sphere. Those who do not are kept at a distance, monitored but never trusted. He understands that alliances are temporary by nature, useful only as long as interests align. Violence, when necessary, is precise. Gone are the chaotic brawls of his youth. Now, force is applied like surgery, minimal and effective. A single act, executed cleanly, carries more weight than 100 threats. Lepke ensures that every action sends a clear message without inviting retaliation. Fear spreads faster when it is quiet. Despite the efficiency, pressure builds. Running an empire requires constant vigilance. Lepke sleeps lightly, waking at the slightest disturbance. His mind rarely rests, cycling through scenarios, risks, and contingencies. He trusts no one fully, not even those closest to him. Trust, he believes, dulls awareness. The city's legal machinery begins to change in subtle ways. Investigators grow more organized. Agencies communicate where they once competed. Files are shared. Patterns are compared. Lepke notices the shift not through arrests, but through silence. The absence of easy corruption signals rising professionalism. Bribes that once smoothed problems now require larger sums, longer negotiations, and more discretion. Lepke responds by reducing exposure. He delegates more, insulating himself behind layers of intermediaries. Orders travel downward without names attached. Money moves upward without direct contact. This distance offers protection, but it also creates vulnerability. The further he is from daily operations, the more he relies on others to execute his vision perfectly. One weak link could compromise everything. Paranoia becomes a tool rather than a burden. Lepke encourages it quietly, fostering an environment where everyone watches everyone else. Betrayal becomes difficult when suspicion is constant. This atmosphere keeps his organization sharp, but it also ensures that no one feels secure enough to challenge him. Control is maintained not just through fear, but through uncertainty. Public life continues uninterrupted. Factories run. Stores open. Families go about their routines. The invisible hand guiding these processes remains unseen. Lepke understands that this invisibility is his greatest strength. He is not a symbol or a legend. He is a function. Remove him, and the system stumbles, unsure how to replace something it never acknowledged. Yet no system is flawless. Small cracks begin to appear. A missed payment here. A delayed shipment there. Individually insignificant, but collectively noticeable. Lepke addresses each issue calmly, but he senses a deeper problem. Growth brings fragility. The larger the structure, the harder it is to protect every corner. He spends more time alone, reviewing reports, listening rather than speaking. His confidence remains, but it is tempered by awareness. He knows history is unkind to men who believe they are invincible. Still, he cannot imagine retreat. Power, once held, cannot be released without consequence. To step back is to invite replacement. As dawn breaks over the city, Lepke watches light spill across rooftops and streets he helped shape. He feels neither pride nor regret, only responsibility. He believes he has created order from chaos, that his presence prevents greater violence. This belief comforts him, allowing sleep to come despite the risks. What he does not yet see is that the very discipline and structure he built are making him visible in new ways. Patterns attract attention when studied long enough. The same consistency that sustains his empire also leaves a trail for those patient enough to follow. For now, Lepke remains in control, a silent architect of the city's underworld, and aware that the tools being sharpened against him are modeled after his own methods. Power has a way of changing the air around a person. It becomes heavier, slower, as if the world itself hesitates before moving. By now, Lepke Buchalter walks through New York, with that invisible weight following him. Doors open sooner. Conversations soften when he enters a room. People do not look directly at him for long, not out of fear alone, but out of instinct. The city has learned, quietly, how to respond. What began as control over labor and logistics has evolved into something broader and more dangerous. Lepke's reach now touches decisions made far above the factory floor. Contracts are written with his influence in mind. Business partnerships are approved or abandoned, based on how they align with the unseen order he maintains. He never signs his name, yet his approval is felt everywhere. The structure he built thrives on predictability. Each man knows his place, each task its time. Deviations are corrected quickly. Lepke insists on this rhythm because he understands human nature. People relax when things feel stable. They stop asking questions. Stability becomes camouflage. Beneath it, he continues expanding, quietly absorbing new opportunities while competitors exhaust themselves fighting openly. Yet success brings a subtle shift. The more Lepke controls, the fewer equals he has. Conversations that once felt like exchanges now feel like briefings. People wait for his reaction before forming opinions. This isolation is not loneliness in the emotional sense, but distance. A gap forms between him and the world, widening with every decision that reinforces his authority. He compensates by refining his awareness. Lepke listens closely to tone and timing. He notices hesitation, eagerness, silence. Information matters more than loyalty now. He rewards honesty, even when it brings bad news. Those who hide problems are more dangerous than those who cause them. This principle keeps his organization resilient, though it also keeps everyone slightly on edge. The city's legal pressure continues to evolve. Investigations become quieter, more methodical. Fewer raids, more surveillance. Lepke senses this shift like a tightening grip that hasn't yet closed. He responds by adjusting his exposure again, pushing operations further from himself. Messages pass through layers, losing detail but gaining safety. He accepts this trade-off, believing distance will protect him. Violence becomes rarer, but more final. When it happens, it is not reactive. It is planned weeks in advance, executed quickly, and followed by silence. Lepke understands that fear lingers longest when unanswered. He allowed rumors to spread without confirmation. People fill gaps with their own imagination, which is always worse than reality. Despite this control, cracks appeared unexpected places. A trusted intermediary grows careless. A payment arrives late without explanation. A conversation feels rehearsed. Lepke does not confront immediately. He observes. People reveal themselves when they think they are unobserved. Patience, he believes, is the ultimate test. His nights grow longer. Sleep comes but lightly. Dreams blur with calculations. He sees routes, schedules, names. The city does not leave his mind when his eyes close. He accepts this as the cost of control. Rest is a luxury for those without responsibility. Publicly, nothing changes. The city thrives. Newspapers celebrate growth and innovation. Factories expand. Transportation networks stretch further. Lepke's influence blends seamlessly into progress, indistinguishable from success. This invisibility reassures him. He believes that as long as he remains a function rather than a figure, he will endure. Yet beneath this confidence lies a quiet tension. The same efficiency that keeps his system running also creates predictability. Patterns repeat. Movements align. To someone patient enough, attentive enough, the structure becomes visible. Lepke senses this possibility but trusts in his layers of insulation. He believes the distance between action and authority will protect him. He spends more time evaluating people than plans. Betrayal is not always intentional. Sometimes it comes from fear, ambition, or exhaustion. Lepke looks for signs of strain. He reduces workloads where necessary, replaces weak links before they break. His leadership style evolves from command to maintenance. As weeks pass, small disruptions accumulate. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to demand attention. Lepke adjusts again, streamlining operations, consolidating routes, tightening oversight. Each adjustment strengthens the system, but also narrows. Flexibility decreases as control increases. In quiet moments, Lepke reflects on the path that brought him here. He does not romanticize it. Survival led to opportunity, opportunity to control. He sees his rise as logical, even inevitable. The city rewards those who understand it. He simply understood it better than most. What he does not fully acknowledge is that inevitability works both ways. Just as his rise followed a pattern, so too will his fall, should it come. Systems resist disruption until they suddenly collapse. Lepke has built something formidable, but not immortal. For now, he remains steady, adjusting to pressure with calm precision. The city continues to move to his rhythm, unaware of how carefully that rhythm is maintained. Lepke Buchalter stands at the height of his power, surrounded by silence, discipline, and the belief that control once mastered can never truly be lost. Control once achieved demands constant renewal. Lepke understands this better than anyone. Power is not a trophy placed on a shelf. It is a living thing that weakens when neglected. As seasons change and the city reshapes itself again, he adapts quietly, refining methods that once seemed final. Nothing is permanent. Only adjustment keeps authority intact. The networks he oversees now extend beyond simple influence. They function with near-automatic precision. Trucks arrive on time without being asked. Labor disputes dissolve before reaching the surface. Payments move through channels so cleanly that even those involved rarely understand the full path. This invisibility is intentional. The fewer people who see the whole picture, the fewer people who can describe it. Lepke spends his days listening. Reports arrive filtered through layers, stripped of emotion and reduced to essentials. He prefers it this way. Emotion clouds judgment. Facts reveal leverage. He notices trends others miss. Small increases in costs, subtle shifts in loyalty, conversations that grow shorter instead of longer. These details tell him where pressure is building. Competition does not disappear. It evolves. New figures emerge, ambitious and impatient. They test boundaries cautiously, probing for weakness. Lepke allows some of these tests to pass unanswered. Silence, he knows, is sometimes the strongest response. It forces opponents to doubt themselves. When action is required, it is decisive and limited. A single correction can prevent a dozen future challenges. The organization beneath him grows more professional. Roles become specialized. Communication tightens. There is less room for improvisation, more emphasis on procedure. Lepke encourages this shift. Procedures outlast individuals. He wants a system that functions even when parts are removed. This belief shapes every decision, from recruitment to discipline. Yet professionalism introduces a new risk: complacency. When things work too smoothly, people stop questioning. Lepke counters this by introducing controlled disruptions, unexpected audits, sudden changes in routes, shifts in responsibility. These tests keep everyone alert. Those who adapt quickly rise. Those who hesitate reveal themselves. The city's institutions continue to modernize. Technology advances. Record-keeping improves. Communication speeds up. Lepke watches these developments closely. Progress cuts both ways. It creates opportunity, but also exposure. He invests in understanding systems that were once ignored, learning how information moves and where it can be redirected or delayed. Despite precautions, pressure from authorities increases incrementally. Not through raids or headlines, but through persistence. Files grow thicker. Timelines lengthen. Investigators learn patience. Lepke respects this. He has always believed that the most dangerous opponents are not emotional, but methodical. He adjusts accordingly, reducing his footprint further, becoming more abstract. Isolation deepens. Fewer people speak to him directly. Meetings become rare and brief. Decisions are delivered, not debated. This distance protects him, but it also narrows his perspective. He compensates by demanding multiple sources for the same information, comparing narratives for inconsistencies. Truth, he believes, lives between versions. At night, when the city quiets again, Lepke reflects on sustainability. Expansion once drove him. Now preservation takes priority. He trims operations that carry unnecessary risk, even if they are profitable. He prefers steady control over rapid growth. This restraint frustrates some associates, but Lepke does not explain himself. Explanation invites argument. Public perception remains unchanged. To the outside world, everything appears normal. Businesses operate. Workers earn wages. Goods move across the city. The absence of disruption becomes the greatest sign of success. Lepke measures power not by visibility, but by the lack of resistance. Yet internal tension grows. The more efficient the system becomes, the less tolerance it has for error. Small mistakes ripple outward faster. Lepke responds by tightening oversight, but he senses the paradox. Absolute control leaves no room for flexibility. Flexibility, however, invites risk. He navigates this balance carefully, adjusting just enough to keep the system breathing. Trust becomes increasingly abstract. Loyalty is assumed until disproven. Lepke no longer believes in personal bonds as safeguards. He believes in structure. If a person fails, the system absorbs the loss and continues. This philosophy hardens him further, but it also stabilizes the organization. The city continues to change. Neighborhoods shift. Old landmarks vanish. New buildings rise. Lepke remains constant amid this transformation, a fixed point around which systems rotate. He believes this constancy proves his mastery. The city bends, but he does not. Still, moments of doubt surface quietly. Not fear, but calculation. He considers exit strategies he never thought necessary. Redundancies. Contingencies. He prepares not for failure, but for interruption. Control, he knows, is easier to maintain than to regain. As dawn approaches, Lepke watches the city wake again, its routines unfolding exactly as planned. He feels no triumph, only confirmation. The machine works. For now, he understands that every system, no matter how refined, eventually faces stress beyond its design. His task is to delay that moment as long as possible. In this balance between dominance and restraint, Lepke Buchalter remains composed, convinced that vigilance will preserve what ambition built, unaware that the very discipline sustaining his power is also narrowing his escape. Time does not announce its turning points. It shifts quietly, like a shadow moving across a wall. For Lepke, this shift begins not with a sudden threat, but with a change in atmosphere. Conversations feel shorter, questions feel sharper. The city still moves according to plan, but the ease that once accompanied control begins to fade. It is not panic he feels, but awareness. The organization continues to function with precision. Yet Lepke senses that precision alone is no longer enough. The world around him is learning. Methods once considered advanced are becoming standard. Law enforcement grows more coordinated, less dependent on chance. The era of impulsive mistakes is giving way to one of patience and documentation. Lepke respects this evolution, but he also recognizes its danger. He adjusts his routines further, narrowing direct contact to a minimum. Messages are relayed through trusted layers, stripped of identifying detail. Names are avoided. Locations rotate. Patterns dissolve as soon as they form. This constant movement keeps him protected, but it also creates distance between intent and execution. The more layers involved, the more room there is for distortion. Lepke compensates by demanding clarity. Reports must be concise, factual, and verifiable. Explanations are unnecessary. Results matter. He reviews information slowly, reading between lines, listening for what is not said. Silence often carries more meaning than words. He has learned this through years of managing fear and ambition. Despite precautions, pressure manifests in subtle disruptions. A shipment is inspected more thoroughly than usual. A routine payment requires additional verification. A familiar contact becomes unavailable without explanation. Each incident alone means little. Together, they form a pattern. Lepke does not react emotionally. He catalogs, compares, and waits. Inside the organization, tension rises. Discipline remains strong, but anxiety seeps in quietly. Men who once felt untouchable now double-check locks, avoid routines, and speak less freely. Lepke allows this unease to exist. Fear sharpens focus. Comfort dulls it. He does not need to remind them of risk. The atmosphere does that for him. Power dynamics shift subtly. Associates who once sought expansion now prioritize stability. Risk tolerance drops. Lepke recognizes this as a natural response, but he also knows that hesitation can invite challenge. He addresses it indirectly, reinforcing structure, clarifying expectations, and removing those who hesitate too long. Indecision spreads faster than fear if left unchecked. The city's rhythm continues uninterrupted on the surface. Factories hum. Deliveries arrive. Workers clock in and out. Lepke watches this continuity carefully. It reassures him, but it also reinforces a truth he cannot ignore. The system has become larger than him. He may control it, but he also depends on it. This interdependence complicates every decision. At night, Lepke revisits his assumptions. He no longer asks whether control can be maintained indefinitely. He asks how long it can be preserved without drawing attention. This distinction matters. Survival is not about permanence, but timing. Knowing when to adjust, when to retreat, when to disappear. These thoughts surface more frequently now. He studies examples from the past, not individuals, but patterns. Systems that collapsed under their own weight, structures that grew too rigid to adapt. He recognizes the warning signs, even as he works to avoid them. Awareness, however, does not guarantee escape. Sometimes it only prolongs the inevitable. Internally, Lepke feels a quiet shift, not regret, but realism. The certainty that once guided him gives way to calculation. He accepts that no amount of discipline can erase risk entirely. Control reduces probability. It does not eliminate it. This acceptance does not weaken him. It sharpens his focus further. He begins preparing contingencies he once considered unnecessary. Financial pathways are diversified. Authority is fragmented deliberately. No single person holds too much information. This decentralization weakens direct control, but strengthens resilience. Lepke chooses survival over dominance, a subtle but significant shift. The organization adapts accordingly. Operations become smaller, more compartmentalized. Fewer people know the full scope. This makes coordination harder, but compromise less likely. Lepke values this trade-off. He believes that opacity is now his greatest defense. Still, the pressure continues to build, not visibly, not violently, but persistently. Like water against stone, it shapes outcomes slowly. Lepke feels it in the way meetings shorten, in the caution behind familiar faces. He does not blame anyone. Systems respond to pressure instinctively. Despite everything, he remains calm. Panic, he knows, is contagious. He maintains the same measured tone, the same deliberate pace. This steadiness reassures those around him, reinforcing his authority even as circumstances tighten. As dawn approaches again, Lepke watches the city awaken, just as it always has. The illusion of normalcy persists, but he understands illusions are temporary. Beneath the surface, forces are aligning, preparing for a moment that has not yet arrived. For now, Lepke remains in motion, adjusting, refining, enduring. He has survived every challenge so far by staying ahead of change. Whether that will be enough this time remains uncertain, but uncertainty no longer frightens him. It has become part of the equation. The city no longer feels endless. It still stretches in every direction, crowded and loud, but to Lepke it has begun to feel enclosed, like a room with invisible walls slowly moving inward. This sensation does not come from fear. It comes from awareness. Power has taught him how patterns tighten long before they break. Each day begins the same way, but Lepke notices how sameness itself has become a risk. Routine once protected him. Now, routine invites attention. He instructs subtle changes across operations, not dramatic enough to disrupt flow, but frequent enough to blur predictability. Routes adjust by minutes. Meetings shift locations. Responsibilities rotate quietly. These changes ripple through the organization, testing adaptability without announcing purpose. Some men struggle with the constant motion. They long for the stability that once defined their work. Lepke observes them closely. Adaptation is no longer optional. Those who cannot adjust expose themselves, not through mistakes but through hesitation. Hesitation slows systems. Slowness creates openings. Lepke cannot allow either. Information becomes his most valuable asset. He demands more detail, not less, but insists it arrive fragmented. No single report tells a complete story. He assembles truth piece by piece, comparing sources, weighing inconsistencies. This process takes time, but time is something Lepke still controls. He believes patience is the last advantage no one can take from him. Pressure from outside continues to grow, but it remains indirect. Lepke notices it in the quality of silence. Familiar channels go quiet. Long-standing arrangements require renegotiation. The city's legal machinery does not rush, it observes. Lepke recognizes this strategy because it mirrors his own. This recognition unsettles him more than open confrontation ever could. Within his organization, loyalty is no longer assumed. It is monitored. Lepke increases internal checks quietly, placing trusted observers where they will not be noticed. He does not accuse. He verifies. Trust, he believes, must be confirmed repeatedly, especially when stakes rise. The psychological weight of control deepens. Lepke finds his thoughts circling the same calculations late into the night. What once felt like mastery now feels like maintenance. Holding power demands more energy than gaining it. Every decision carries consequences that branch endlessly. He accepts this burden without complaint. Complaints solve nothing. He reflects on the nature of fear. Early in his rise, fear was sharp and immediate. Now it is diffuse, subtle, woven into expectation. People comply not because they are afraid in the moment, but because compliance has become habit. Lepke understands this evolution. It is effective, but fragile. Habits can be broken when pressure changes. To counter this, he reinforces presence without visibility. Small reminders surface where needed. A message delivered indirectly. A correction applied swiftly. Not enough to provoke reaction, just enough to remind people that oversight remains constant. This balance keeps the system aligned. The city itself seems to watch him now, though he knows that is illusion. Buildings stand silent. Streets carry on. Yet he feels observed, not by individuals but by systems. Records, timelines, patterns, these abstractions concern him more than any rival ever did. You cannot intimidate a process. Lepke begins to contemplate limitations. Not failure, but boundaries. How much control is enough? How much exposure is too much? These questions have no clear answers. He adjusts incrementally, reducing personal involvement further, trusting the structure he built to sustain itself. This delegation introduces distance. Decisions echo back to him after they are made, not before. He reviews outcomes rather than plans. This shift unsettles him, but he accepts it as necessary. Control now lies in design, not execution. Moments of nostalgia surface unexpectedly. Not for innocence, but for simplicity. When problems were physical, visible, and immediate. When survival required action, not patience. Lepke dismisses these thoughts quickly. Sentiment is a distraction. The present demands clarity. Despite everything, his authority remains intact. Operations continue smoothly. No public disruptions occur. The absence of crisis reassures those around him, reinforcing confidence in his leadership. Lepke understands this psychology well. Calm at the top prevents chaos below. Yet internally, he prepares for change. Not dramatic escape, but adaptation. He explores scenarios without committing to them. Options remain open, deliberately undefined. Flexibility, he knows, is survival's ally. As days pass, the pressure does not release. It stabilizes like a held breath. Lepke waits, alert but composed. He has always believed that the most dangerous moment is not the strike, but the pause before it. That pause stretches now, testing endurance. He remains steady, conserving energy, observing movement. The city continues its endless motion around him, unaware of the quiet recalibration happening beneath its surface. Lepke Buchalter stands at a crossroads defined not by choice, but by timing. Whatever comes next will not be sudden. It will be earned slowly, the way power was earned, through patience, precision, and the relentless narrowing of possibility. The night in New York has a rhythm that most people never notice, a pulse that beats in alleyways, behind factory walls, and beneath the hum of streetlights. Lepke moves within that rhythm, as if it were music. each step measured, each glance precise. The city speaks in whispers to those who can hear it. Lepke has learned to listen. He understands the language of opportunity and danger, spoken in the cadence of footsteps and the timing of shipments. By this point, his operations have expanded into areas that were once beyond imagination for a single man. Transportation, labor, finances, protection, every sector touched by his influence runs like a machine with countless moving parts. He does not need to be everywhere. His presence is a signal rather than a requirement. Orders flow downward, and results travel upward, filtered through layers so subtle that few could trace them back to him. This is the essence of control, not visibility, but effect. Lepke's methods are no longer about brute strength. They are about understanding human behavior and the mechanics of systems. A delay in a factory, a miscommunication among workers, a subtle misplacement of funds, all of these are points of leverage. Lepke applies pressure silently, indirectly, ensuring that outcomes bend toward his design. Fear remains a tool, but it is now strategic, not reactive. It is measured like a surgeon measuring incision. Within his inner circle, the culture has shifted. Men speak in truncated sentences, conveying only essential facts. They are disciplined not by intimidation alone, but by the invisible expectation that every error will have consequences. Errors are not punished publicly, they are corrected privately, surgically, and without ceremony. The organization hums because each member understands that order is not negotiable, but survival depends on it. Lepke never underestimates the power of this quiet compliance. Yet he is not complacent. Power is transient. And history has taught him that systems, no matter how well designed, are fragile. Small disruptions are amplified when ignored. Lepke monitors the city as carefully as he monitors his own operation. Changes in behavior, tone, and circumstance, subtle variations in routine signal potential threats before they manifest. Observation, he knows, is as critical as action. The criminal landscape around him continues to evolve. New figures emerge with ambition tempered by impatience, willing to challenge convention but unprepared for precision. Lepke allows some of these tests to pass. He watches how they respond to silence, how they weigh risk. Those who stumble are quietly removed. Those who succeed temporarily become tools, not partners. In his eyes, loyalty is transactional, measured in usefulness rather than sentiment. Prohibition has transformed the city into a more complex ecosystem. Alcohol flows underground, generating competition, opportunity, and visibility. Lepke's operations navigate this environment with discretion. He does not seek headlines, he does not flaunt influence. Instead, his strategies integrate seamlessly into the existing structure, make interference difficult without revealing the orchestrator behind the system. This approach extends his reach without exposing vulnerability. Despite the scale of his operations, Lepke remains acutely aware of vulnerability. Distance from daily tasks is protective, but it also introduces risk. Decisions pass through intermediaries, and information may be distorted. To mitigate this, he demands redundancy and verification at multiple levels. Multiple sources report the same events, often contradicting one another. Lepke assembles truth through synthesis, a process requiring patience, focus, and memory honed over years of observation. The city's legal machinery grows more organized. Investigators are patient, methodical, and increasingly sophisticated. Lepke respects this. He does not underestimate intelligence or persistence. Instead, he adapts, introducing variability into routines, limiting exposure, and anticipating scrutiny. Awareness of systemic pressure informs every decision, from the placement of personnel to the routing of resources. This constant adjustment becomes a defining feature of his leadership. Isolation is a byproduct of control. Lepke speaks rarely, not from arrogance, but from calculation. Silence maintains authority and limits the possibility of compromise. Those who work beneath him learn quickly. Attention must be earned. Trust is provisional, and presence is measured. This environment breeds competence, but also tension. Men are disciplined, efficient, and alert, but rarely comfortable. Within this tension lies stability. Lepke knows that fear alone cannot sustain power. It is the anticipation of consequence, the expectation of correction that ensures compliance. Subtlety, discretion, and precision become the backbone of authority. Even when decisions are enforced invisibly, their effects ripple outward clearly. Influence, once indirect, becomes structural. At night, when he surveys the city from a quiet vantage point, Lepke contemplates the duality of his existence. The city thrives, unaware of his influence, yet the weight of control rests on him alone. Decisions he makes today may reverberate for weeks, months, or years. Small mistakes, if unnoticed, could escalate into major disruptions. He accepts this responsibility without complaint. Vigilance is not burdensome, it is survival. The The psychological landscape is as intricate as the physical. Lepke recognizes that people respond not only to action but to perception. A rumor, a delayed payment, or even a glance carries weight if interpreted correctly. Fear is amplified when it intersects with uncertainty. He cultivates this environment deliberately, allowing patterns to emerge only to be disrupted subtly. This strategy strengthens compliance while minimizing direct conflict. The city continues its rhythm, factories hum, deliveries arrive, and lives unfold. Yet beneath the surface, the machinery of control operates with invisible precision. Lepke's influence stretches across sectors, institutions, and neighborhoods, shaping outcomes without ever announcing itself. This quiet orchestration becomes a testament to his understanding of both human behavior and systemic mechanics. By the early hours, when most of the city sleeps, Lepke reflects on the nature of time itself. Each decision, each movement, each observation is part of a continuum. Actions taken today influence events months ahead. He calculates with foresight, understanding that control is less about force than about alignment with patterns. The most subtle manipulation, applied consistently, often produces the most profound results. As dawn breaks and light spills across the streets, Lepke observes the city awaken once more. Normalcy persists. The hum of industry continues. People move with purpose, unaware that the flow they take for granted has been shaped, guided, and monitored by a single, unseen hand. In this moment, power feels complete, yet fragile. Stability exists only until the next test arrives, and Lepke waits, calm, vigilant, prepared for the challenges that time and circumstance will inevitably bring. Understanding that influence is a delicate balance between visibility and invisibility, action and restraint, control and adaptation. The city never truly sleeps. Even in the darkest hours, there is motion beneath the surface, a whisper of engines, the faint clatter of unseen deliveries, the shuffle of figures moving in shadows. Lepke has long understood this pulse, learned to feel it like a second heartbeat beneath his own. Each sound, each anomaly is information. Each deviation from routine is a signal, a clue, a thread in the intricate web he maintains. By now, his empire is vast but contained. He controls far more than labor and transportation. His influence has reached every layer of the city that mattered, from warehouses to unions to supply chains feeding the clandestine flow of Prohibition-era alcohol. Yet Lepke is aware that expansion alone is meaningless without discipline. Growth that is uncontrolled becomes a liability. He has seen others rise swiftly only to fall faster. He will not repeat their mistakes. He walks through the early morning streets with measured steps, observing without appearing to observe. Shopkeepers open their doors. Pedestrians navigate puddles from overnight rain, and the machinery of the city hums on. To them, it is ordinary. To Lepke, every movement tells a story. Delivery trucks arriving late hint at inefficiencies. Workers' expressions reveal fatigue or dissatisfaction. Even the order of trash collection speaks of shifting municipal priorities. Everything is a signal, and nothing escapes his notice. Within his organization, layers of communication have become essential. Lepke trusts very few, and those he does trust are carefully vetted. Messages pass through intermediaries, and information is confirmed by multiple sources. He avoids being the focal point. Visibility is dangerous. Power is safer when it is perceived rather than displayed. Yet, invisibility requires control, constant vigilance, and the ability to respond decisively when the unexpected occurs. Unexpected events, however, continue to arise. Rival factions occasionally attempt to assert themselves, probing for weakness or opportunity. Lepke does not respond rashly. He observes. He allows the trial to unfold, watching how the aggressors behave when met with subtle resistance rather than confrontation. Most retreat quietly. The few who do not are neutralized efficiently, without spectacle, leaving the message unspoken yet unmistakable. Fear, when applied with precision, spreads farther than violence delivered in haste. Prohibition has made the city a more complicated ecosystem. Alcohol flows through hidden networks, creating opportunities, challenges, and new risks. Lepke's operations navigate the space with the same principle that has guided him from the beginning: control, observation, and calculated action. He does not seek attention or recognition. His power lies in functioning without leaving traces, in shaping outcomes without being seen. The city bends around him because it does not know he is directing its rhythm. At night, when he surveys operations from the quiet of a hidden office, Lepke contemplates human nature. Compliance is rarely about obedience. It is about anticipation. People act according to perceived consequences. They internalize rules and expectations, often without being told. This is the subtlety Lepke has mastered. Fear is a blunt tool. Perception is refined. He manipulates both, aligning behavior without confrontation, guiding outcomes without chaos. Yet control has costs. Isolation is a constant companion. Lepke speaks sparingly, mostly issuing directives or receiving reports. Conversation without purpose feels dangerous because words can mislead, betray, or create doubt. He has learned to trust outcomes, not assurances. Every member of his organization is constantly tested, often unknowingly. Do we ensure alignment with objectives? Loyalty is provisional, merit-based, and perpetually observed. Despite these precautions, pressure from outside forces grows incrementally. Investigators, prosecutors, and rival organizations begin connecting patterns that were once invisible. They move quietly, methodically, creating surveillance that is difficult to detect. Lepke recognizes the signs not through sudden raids or arrests, but through absence, the silence in channels that were once reliable, the lack of expected information, the subtle tension in repeated interactions. This quiet surveillance is more dangerous than open conflict because it requires patience and time to counter. Lepke adapts. He increases redundancy, changes routines, and strengthens compartmentalization within his operations. No single individual holds excessive knowledge. Information is fragmented intentionally. This makes coordination more challenging but protects the whole system. The organization's efficiency relies on distributed competence, not centralized execution. Lepke's role shifts from executor to observer, decision maker, and strategist. Control is maintained, but always at a distance. Psychologically, the weight of constant vigilance is profound. Lepke's thoughts cycle endlessly through plans, contingencies, and patterns. Sleep is shallow, punctuated by calculations rather than dreams. He accepts this as a cost of dominance. He cannot relinquish focus, even momentarily, because the system he built demands his attention. The city's machinery continues to function, but its smooth operation depends on the invisible threads he maintains. Yet Lepke is not consumed by fear. His confidence is measured, grounded in experience and observation. He understands the balance of power, risk, and opportunity better than anyone around him. He knows that aggression can backfire, but precision rarely fails. Decisions are deliberate, consequences anticipated. This clarity allows him to maintain calm even as the world becomes increasingly complex and unpredictable. During rare moments of solitude, he reflects on the nature of impermanence. Control is never absolute. Authority can be challenged, disrupted, or exposed. Structure crumble under pressure no matter how well engineered. Yet Lepke does not dwell on inevitability. Instead, he focuses on delay, adaptation, and resilience. The goal is not immortality, but endurance, preserving influence long enough to secure outcomes, protect resources, and mitigate risk. The city awakens again, oblivious to the orchestration behind its rhythm. Factories hum, streets bustle, merchants and workers carry on with the routine of life. In this flow, Lepke's presence is undetectable yet decisive. Every movement, every decision, every outcome bears his invisible mark. The balance of fear, anticipation, and authority keeps the city aligned without revealing the hand guiding it. And so, Lepke continues, moving quietly through the streets, through shadows and systems, managing an empire that few comprehend. Aware that each day brings subtle changes, each decision carries weight, and each moment requires vigilance. The world around him may shift, but he remains the constant, the unseen conductor of a complex, living symphony of power. Control, as Lepke had learned, is not a state, it is a continuous process. The city, vibrant and chaotic, responds to forces both visible and invisible, and he moves like a shadow within it, unnoticed yet shaping outcomes in every corner. By this stage, his awareness has expanded beyond the surface. Every street, every warehouse, every union office carries information he can read if he listens carefully enough. The rhythm of the city, the sounds, the delays, the patterns of human movement is as legible to him as a ledger. Each anomaly signals potential opportunity or risk, and Lepke treats it accordingly. The empire he has built is immense. It no longer exists solely in his presence. It functions with or without him in direct oversight. Yet it remains vulnerable without his guidance. He has learned to structure influence so that decisions cascade down layers of intermediaries, filtered and reinforced at each level. This ensures compliance and precision, but it also introduces the challenge of distance. The farther he is from execution, the greater the need for verification, the more he depends on the competence of those beneath him. Trust is never assumed, it is tested continuously. Prohibition has made the city both more lucrative and more dangerous. Alcohol flows underground, and with it, opportunity and competition. Lepke does not rush into conflict, instead he observes. He studies rival operators, evaluating their patience, resourcefulness, and patterns of behavior. Those who act impulsively expose themselves. Those who move cautiously may become useful tools. His interventions are precise, surgical, and often invisible, removing obstacles without drawing attention to himself. Rumors spread faster than violence ever could, and Lepke uses them deliberately, shaping perception without revealing intention. The discipline of his organization is remarkable. Each member understands that deviations are not tolerated, but enforcement is subtle, almost imperceptible. Errors are corrected privately. Instructions are followed without argument. The culture is one of efficiency rather than fear, though fear remains an underlying current. Lepke has learned that habit is a more powerful motivator than intimidation. When men internalize the consequences of disobedience, compliance becomes automatic. Fear alone is temporary, structure sustains. Lepke spends hours observing patterns of human behavior. Compliance, deception, loyalty, ambition, they are all measurable, if one knows what to watch for. A hesitant glance, a repeated error, or the timing of a report can reveal intentions more clearly than words. He interprets actions against expectations, isolating anomalies that may indicate hidden agendas. Observation is a constant process, and he does not relax. Even sleep is measured, brief, and interrupted by calculations and contingency planning. Pressure from authorities and rival organizations has grown subtler. Investigators do not rush into raids. They work quietly, systematically, compiling information, connecting dots. Lepke senses this long before it manifests visibly. The signs appear in silences, in unexpected delays, in interactions that feel different from routine. He responds by adjusting exposure, altering routes, shifting responsibilities, and reinforcing compartmentalization. The more the system grows, the more delicate its maintenance becomes, and Lepke approaches each decision with measured care. Isolation deepens as the stakes rise. Lepke communicates sparingly. Meetings are precise and brief. Words must be chosen with care because language can mislead, betray, or compromise. Trust exists only where demonstrated through action, not promises. Those who fail are quietly removed. Those who succeed are observed further. Loyalty is provisional, merit-based, and continuously scrutinized. His position allows him to shape outcomes without being directly involved. But it also means that even minor disruptions must be detected and corrected immediately. Within the organization, small adjustments are continuous. Routines rotate, routes change, responsibilities shift. These subtle movements prevent predictability, which is both a defense and a method of control. Lepke ensures that no one becomes complacent, that vigilance remains ingrained. Even when operations appear seamless, he knows that stability is temporary unless actively maintained. Power is less about domination and more about orchestration, about aligning people, resources, in a way that produces desired results without revealing the hand that directs them. The psychological weight of control is significant. Lepke reflects on it not as a burden, but as a responsibility. Every decision, every adjustment, affects countless lives. The safety of his organization, the success of operations, the preservation of his influence all rest on continuous awareness. Mistakes are magnified. Delays have consequences, and miscalculations can ripple outward in ways that cannot be reversed. This understanding sharpens him, focuses him, and keeps him alert, but it also isolates him from normal human experience. Financially, operations are structured to minimize exposure. Funds are routed carefully, layered through intermediaries, and disguised within legitimate flows. Cash moves efficiently, yet no single individual understands the entirety of the system. This approach reduces vulnerability while ensuring liquidity. Lepke's decisions are informed by both macro patterns and micro details. A single delay, a misaligned payment, or an overlooked route can signal opportunity or risk, and he reacts accordingly. Despite the scale and complexity, Lepke maintains an almost ritualistic attention to details that most would consider trivial. The timing of shipments, the sequence of reports, the placement of observers, each factor is noted, recorded, and analyzed. Efficiency is measured not in speed alone, but in reliability and adaptability. The organization's resilience comes from precision and redundancy, but also from his relentless observation and subtle adjustments. Outside the walls of his operation, the city continues its rhythm. Streets fill with workers, deliveries arrive, businesses open, and life unfolds as if untouched. Yet beneath this surface, Lepke's influence permeates every relevant channel. Decisions ripple silently through warehouses, factories, and transportation routes. Outcomes align with his design not through visibility or force, but through structure, perception, and anticipation. The city bends around him, unaware of the invisible hand that shapes its pulse. As night falls, Lepke surveys his domain quietly, contemplating both success and fragility. The empire he has constructed is vast, but it exists in a delicate balance. Too much exposure invites scrutiny. Too much isolation risks distortion. He does not seek glory or recognition, he seeks endurance. Power is measured not in conquest but in sustainability. He adjusts continually, aware that the system's health depends on constant vigilance, subtle manipulation, and a deep understanding of both people and process. Dawn arrives again, and the city awakens as it always has. Factories hum, streets bustle, and ordinary life continues, unaffected in appearance by the orchestration beneath. Lepke remains the silent architect of this rhythm, watching, calculating, and maintaining control. He understands that influence is never permanent, that patterns can shift, and that the most dangerous challenges are often invisible. And yet, he continues, calm, precise, and prepared for the subtle force that will inevitably test the system he has spent years perfecting. The city has an unspoken heartbeat, a rhythm that only the most observant can feel. Lepke Buchalter feels it constantly, not in waves or bursts, but as a steady pulse that tells him more than the eyes can see. He moves through streets that appear ordinary, but to him, they are alive with information. Every light that flickers, every delivery that arrives late, every glance exchanged between strangers carries meaning. Observation has become instinct, and instinct has become survival. By now, the operations he controls are both vast and intricate. Warehouses, factories, labor unions, transportation routes, and financial networks all fall within his unseen influence. Yet he does not need to be physically present to exert control. Orders pass through layers of intermediaries, filtered, clarified, and executed with precision. Each layer insulates him from risk while maintaining the integrity of the system. This is the culmination of years of careful structuring, patience, and foresight. Despite the seeming stability, Lepke knows that vulnerability is never absent. Systems grow brittle when left unchecked. He scrutinizes every detail, from the timing of shipments to the behavior of men in his inner circle. Slight hesitation, a repeated error, or even a subtle change in tone can indicate a disruption that may escalate if ignored. Observation is not passive. It is continuous, deliberate, and calculated. His approach to power has evolved. Violence is no longer the first option, but a last resort applied with precision. When necessary, it is clean, decisive, and silent. Rumors, perceptions, and indirect pressure are often more effective than overt confrontation. He understands the psychology of fear, the subtle interplay between anticipation and consequence. Influence, he knows, is more enduring when invisible, more effective when internalized rather than enforced. Within his organization, loyalty and competence are constantly tested. No one is beyond scrutiny. Errors are corrected quietly, lessons are implied rather than announced, and trust is verified through repeated performance rather than words. The culture he has cultivated emphasizes efficiency and discretion over fear alone. Men understand that survival depends on alignment with expectations, and deviation, even unintentional, carries consequences. The system operates smoothly because discipline is internalized. The city's broader environment continues to change. Prohibition creates both opportunity and risk, with alcohol flowing through hidden channels and generating competition. Rival figures emerge, some ambitious, some reckless. Lepke observes these developments, allowing minor tests to occur without interference. Those who stumble remove themselves from the equation. Those who succeed may be integrated as tools for further expansion, though never as equals. Authority is maintained through structure and influence, not through sentiment. Isolation has become an inescapable companion. Lepke speaks rarely and selectively. Words, he knows, are fragile. Meaning can be distorted. And trust is a liability if based solely on conversation. He relies on observation and verification, on outcomes rather than promises. Even in rare moments of dialogue with his closest associates, he measures tone, timing, and intention, reading more from what is unsaid than from what is spoken. Financial operations are refined and complex. Cash moves through channels disguised as legitimate transactions, layered through multiple intermediaries. No one has full visibility, reducing exposure and enhancing security. Profitability is balanced against risk, and every movement is calculated to minimize detection. Lepke approaches these flows like a chess player, considering not only immediate gain but the potential consequences months ahead. The organization's efficiency and resilience stem from redundancy and compartmentalization. Responsibilities rotate, routines shift, and communication is intentionally layered. Predictability is avoided because patterns invite observation. Subtle variations keep the system adaptive while maintaining control. Compliance is ensured not through overt authority alone but through design, anticipation, and carefully calibrated psychological pressure. Lepke also understands the delicate balance of perception. The city continues its daily operations unaware of the invisible orchestration behind it. Factories hum, streets bustle, deliveries are made, and life unfolds. Yet every movement, every decision, every outcome aligns with the framework he has designed. Influence is silent, pervasive, and enduring because it is largely undetected. The perception of normalcy masks the immense structure sustaining it. Night brings reflection. Lepke contemplates both the fragility and the strength of what he has built. The system functions efficiently, but even minor errors could cascade into significant consequences. His vigilance is not paranoia. It is recognition of the inevitability of unforeseen events. He considers contingencies, evaluates responses, and adjusts where necessary. Control, he knows, is maintained through constant adaptation, observation, and anticipation. Even as the city sleeps, Lepke's mind remains alert. The organization is alive with activity, but it is his foresight and orchestration that ensure continuity. Decisions ripple through the layers and outcomes align with intent, often without those involved realizing the hand guiding them. Influence, once earned through direct action, now functions as an architecture, sustaining itself through design, discipline, and subtle enforcement. Pressure from external forces grows increasingly subtle and indirect. Investigators, rival operators, and unseen adversaries move quietly, slowly connecting patterns that once remained invisible. Lepke anticipates these shifts not through direct confrontation, but by recognizing the absence of expected signals, the delay of a report, a sudden silence, a minor disruption. His response is deliberate: adjustments, relocations, rotations, all intended to preserve the integrity of the system while minimizing exposure. He reflects occasionally on the weight of authority. The power he wields is immense yet fragile, invisible yet influential. Every decision, every adjustment, carries consequences that echo outward. Survival is less about confrontation than about alignment with patterns, anticipation of change, and the steady application of observation, influence, and discipline. Authority, he knows, is a balance between control, adaptability, and the careful orchestration of perception. As dawn arrives and the city stirs, Lepke observes the flow of life. The streets fill with workers, the factories hum, and commerce continues uninterrupted. To the untrained eye, the city appears ordinary, functioning without disruption. Yet beneath the surface, his influence extends everywhere. Patterns align, movements follow expectation, and outcomes reflect the silent architecture he has created. Lepke's control is complete, yet contingent of perpetual exercise in vigilance, observation, and adaptation. And so he continues moving through the city as both participant and observer, orchestrator and guardian of a system few understand. Every action, every decision, every glance is measured, deliberate, and significant. The empire he has constructed is vast, intricate, and resilient, yet its maintenance depends entirely on the subtle application of control, the keen observation of human behavior, and the unwavering discipline that has defined him from the beginning. Lepke Buchalter remains both a force within the city and a shadow above it, silent, vigilant, and enduring. The city's pulse is relentless, an invisible rhythm that moves through streets, factories, and alleys alike. Lepke Buchalter has learned to feel it as surely as he feels his own heartbeat. Every flicker of light, every delayed shipment, every subtle shift in behavior carries meaning. To him, the city is not merely a collection of people and buildings. It is a living system, intricate, responsive, and endlessly revealing. Observation has become instinct, and instinct has become a weapon. By this point, Lepke's operations are enormous, but scale alone does not define power. The true measure is control, the ability to shape outcomes without being seen, to influence decisions before they are even made. Layers of intermediaries filter orders, verify information, and execute tasks with precision. No single individual sees the full picture. This protects both him and the organization, creating a web of influence that is simultaneously fragile and resilient. Lepke's role is less that of a commander than a silent architect, adjusting elements subtly to maintain balance. Prohibition continues to redefine the city, generating new opportunities and dangers. Liquor flows through clandestine networks, creating both wealth and rivalry. New figures emerge, ambitious but inexperienced, challenging norms without understanding consequences. Lepke watches quietly, allowing the untested to reveal their weaknesses. Those who stumble are quietly removed, their failure serving as a warning to others. Those who succeed are cautiously integrated, valued for their utility but never elevated beyond their usefulness. In this world, loyalty is transactional and measured, not sentimental. The inner workings of his organization are disciplined to near perfection. Men follow routines without question, mistakes are corrected quietly, and trust is constantly verified. The culture he has fostered rewards competence, discretion, and the internalization of rules. Fear exists, but it is secondary to structure. Compliance is habit, and habit is more enduring than intimidation. The subtle orchestration of human behavior, more than brute force, defines Lepke's control. Observation is constant. He notices not only actions, but absences, gaps, and hesitation. A missing report, a delayed shipment, or a brief silence can signal deviation. He analyzes these anomalies, cross-referencing them with patterns and prior behavior. This vigilance allows him to anticipate problems before they manifest, a skill honed over years of experience. He knows that even minor disruptions, if left unaddressed, can ripple outward and threaten the stability of the entire network. Financial operations are carefully layered to minimize exposure. Cash flows through multiple channels, disguised as legitimate transactions, and no single person understands the full system. Lepke monitors every movement, ensuring liquidity while reducing vulnerability. Decisions are not made hastily. Each has long-term implications. Efficiency, security, and adaptability guide every action. He approaches money as he does people, with analysis, foresight, and measured intervention. The city itself functions as a complex, interdependent organism. Factories hum, workers commute, deliveries proceed, and life unfolds as if untouched by his influence. Yet, beneath this surface, his architecture of power guides nearly every movement that matters. Outcomes align with his intentions because systems are structured to respond to pressure, incentives, and perception. Lepke's authority is invisible, pervasive, and enduring precisely because it is unrecognized. The illusion of normalcy is his greatest asset. Even as control is maintained, external pressures intensify. Investigators grow more sophisticated, following threads and connecting patterns that were once invisible. Rival operators adapt, probing weaknesses with patience and strategy. Lepke responds by adjusting routines, reallocating responsibilities, and reinforcing compartmentalization. The organization becomes more resilient with every adaptation, yet each change introduces new challenges. Flexibility and vigilance remain critical to survival. Isolation deepens as the stakes rise. Lepke speaks infrequently and deliberately, knowing that every word carries weight. Conversations are measured, purposeful, and rare. Trust is earned through action, not promises. Loyalty is constantly verified through observation, testing, and outcomes. Even the most competent associates are observed continuously, their actions filtered through layers of verification before reaching him. The fewer assumptions he makes, the safer the organization becomes. Pressure manifests not in sudden attacks, but in subtle shifts, delayed reports, changed behavior, unexpected absences. These signals are more dangerous than outright confrontation because they reveal intent without exposure. Lepke interprets each carefully, adjusting operations in response without drawing attention. Subtle manipulation, applied consistently, achieves results far more effectively than overt force. Fear and perception are instruments, wielded quietly and precisely. The psychological weight of control is unrelenting. Lepke reflects on it not with regret but with recognition. Every decision influences countless outcomes. Mistakes are amplified, errors propagate, and miscalculations ripple unpredictably. Vigilance is necessary not only for survival, but for the stability of the system he has designed. Sleep is brief and shallow, punctuated by calculations, observations, and contingency planning. The cost of influence is perpetual awareness. Despite these challenges, Lepke remains composed. His authority is maintained not through spectacle, but through design, foresight, and disciplined execution. Outcomes align with intent because he understands both human behavior and systemic mechanics. The organization functions like a living organism, responding predictably to pressure and intervention. His mastery lies in shaping this organism without revealing the hand that guides it. At night, he contemplates the impermanence of power. No empire, no matter how well constructed, is immune to disruption. Yet Lepke does not dwell on inevitability. He focuses on delay, adaptation, and resilience. Endurance, not permanence, is the goal. Every adjustment, every subtle correction, is part of the ongoing exercise of influence. Survival depends not on aggression alone, but on foresight, subtlety, and control. As dawn breaks, the city stirs to life. Streets fill with pedestrians, factories resume operations, and commerce continues uninterrupted. To the untrained observer, everything is ordinary. Yet every movement, every decision, every outcome is shaped by the careful orchestration of Lepke Buchalter. His influence is complete yet impermanent, silent yet decisive. Power, in its purest form, exists in the alignment of perception, action, and consequence, and Lepke continues to command it with relentless vigilance. The city flows around him like water around a stone. Patterns persist, behavior conforms, and outcomes align. Every action, every glance, every adjustment is measured. Lepke's presence is felt even when unseen. Authority, carefully maintained through observation, discipline, and subtle intervention, ensures that the empire he built continues to function. He remains both observer and participant, guardian and architect, silent, vigilant, and enduring. The city moves in quiet cycles unnoticed by most, yet entirely visible to those who have learned to read its subtle rhythms. Lepke Buchalter has spent years attuning himself to these rhythms, perceiving signals invisible to others. A sudden pause in a delivery, a quiet argument overheard in a distant alley, the slight hesitation of a courier, each carries meaning. To Lepke, the city is a living organism, and he is its unseen pulse, guiding flow, predicting outcomes and adjusting movements before consequences manifest. His empire, now expansive and intricate, functions with precision. Layers of trusted intermediaries translate his instructions into action, verify information, and manage outcomes. No single individual sees the entire system, ensuring both efficiency and security. This is the essence of Lepke's control: influence without exposure, orchestration without overt intervention. Each element, from warehouses to union offices, from financial channels to street-level operatives, operate like a carefully tuned instrument, responding to pressure, expectation, and subtle adjustment. Despite outward stability, vulnerability is ever present. Systems can fracture from within, and even minor disruptions can ripple outward with unintended consequences. Lepke monitors his organization constantly, observing behavior, verifying loyalty, and correcting deviations before they threaten structural integrity. A missed report, a repeated error, or a shift in tone can signal potential disruption. Observation, analysis, and timely adjustment are the tools that preserve dominance. Prohibition has shaped the city into a more dangerous, yet profitable, environment. Alcohol flows through clandestine networks, creating opportunity, competition, and risk. Rival factions test boundaries, sometimes with ambition, sometimes with recklessness. Lepke allows minor tests to unfold, measuring responses, evaluating strengths, and assessing weaknesses. Those who falter are quietly removed. Those who succeed are utilized strategically, but never elevated beyond their functional value. Loyalty is conditional and performance-based, not emotional. The organization thrives because structure and discipline outweigh sentiment. Within his inner circle, discipline is relentless. Routines are followed meticulously, errors corrected quietly, and trust is continuously verified. Compliance is internalized, enforced not through fear alone, but through expectation and habit. The culture emphasizes efficiency, precision, and subtle enforcement. Men understand that their survival depends on alignment with both instruction and anticipation of consequence. Subtle fear supports structure, but the backbone of loyalty is competence and reliability. Observation extends beyond action to include the absence of action. A missing report, a delayed payment, a silent operative. These anomalies carry meaning. Lepke analyzes each carefully, comparing patterns and historical behavior. Anticipation allows him to mitigate problems before they escalate. Vigilance is not paranoia, it is a necessary tool of survival. The organization, vast as it is, relies on its continuous oversight to maintain alignment and prevent decay. Financially, the system is robust. Funds flow through multiple channels, obscured by layers of legitimate transaction. No single person has full visibility, reducing risk and exposure. Each movement is deliberate, calculated, and monitored. Profitability is balanced with discretion, ensuring liquidity while minimizing vulnerability. Lepke approaches finance as he approaches people, with analysis, foresight, and strategic intervention, knowing that a single misstep can cascade through the network. Despite the complexity of operations, the city maintains an illusion of normalcy. Streets bustle, businesses operate, deliveries arrive, and life appears unaffected by the invisible architecture of control. Yet every outcome, every movement, aligns with Lepke's orchestration. Influence is subtle and pervasive. The perception of ordinary life is maintained because the guidance behind it is silent and precise. This invisibility is the greatest strength of his authority. External pressures grow increasingly sophisticated. Investigators, rival operators, and unseen threats operate with patience, connecting patterns that were once invisible. Lepke senses these pressures not through confrontation, but through silence, disruption, and deviation from routine. He responds by adjusting operations, reallocating responsibilities, and reinforcing compartmentalization. Redundancy, layered oversight, and subtle rotation of roles ensure resilience without revealing strategy. Flexibility and constant observation are essential. Isolation is a necessary consequence of leadership. Lepke speaks sparingly, communicates deliberately, and trusts outcomes over words. Every conversation carries risk. Every decision requires careful measurement. Loyalty is earned through performance, verified by results, and continuously observed. Even his most competent associates remain under scrutiny, filtered through layers of observation and verification before reaching his awareness. Fewer assumptions, more evidence, more survival. Pressure manifests in subtle ways: a delayed shipment, a quiet absence, an unexpected question. These indirect signals are more dangerous than confrontation because they indicate thought, intent, and potential threat. Lepke responds with precision, making adjustments to operations without alerting others to the intervention. Subtlety, consistency, and indirect influence ensure outcomes without exposure, sustaining authority while maintaining control. The weight of leadership is unrelenting. Every decision, every correction, every adjustment impacts countless lives. Errors magnify, miscalculations ripple, and vigilance is required constantly. Sleep is brief and fragmented, filled with calculation and observation. Yet Lepke accepts that as part of his role. Influence requires awareness, and awareness demands sacrifice. Authority is not passive. It is exercised continuously, carefully, and strategically. Despite the intensity of his responsibilities, Lepke maintains calm. Authority is not demonstrated through spectacle or aggression, but through design, foresight, and disciplined execution. Outcomes align with intent because the system has been constructed to respond predictably to pressure, incentive, and expectation. The organization functions as a living organism guided by invisible hands and subtle nudges, maintaining balance and order without disruption. As night falls, he reflects on the fragility and strength of what he has built. The system functions efficiently, but even minor mistakes can create cascading consequences. Vigilance, adaptation, and subtle influence preserve stability. Survival depends less on force than on understanding, manipulation, and the orchestration of human behavior. Authority is exercised through observation, anticipation, and careful correction. With dawn, the city awakens once again. Streets fill, factories hum, commerce continues, and life appears ordinary. Yet beneath this surface, Lepke's influence shapes every meaningful movement. Patterns align, outcomes reflect intention, and authority remains silent but absolute. The empire he has built operates with precision, resilience, and subtlety. Guided by his constant vigilance and strategic foresight, Lepke Buchalter remains both unseen and omnipresent, a guardian of control, a master of anticipation, and a silent force shaping the rhythm of the city. The city hums with life, a living organism that seems oblivious to the intricate machinery hidden beneath its surface. Lepke Buchalter has spent years perfecting his perception of this organism, learning to interpret its subtle rhythms, its quiet signals, and its hidden currents. Every street corner, every warehouse manager, every union meeting carries information if one knows how to read it. Lepke does. He moves through the city like a ghost, invisible yet profoundly influential, aware of every movement that matters and every deviation from expectation. By now, his empire stretches into almost every corner of New York's underground economy. He oversees transportation, labor, financial channels, and illegal alcohol distribution, all coordinated through layers of intermediaries and trusted lieutenants. These layers serve dual purposes. They execute orders efficiently and shield him from exposure. No one person knows the full scope of operations. This structure allows Lepke to exert control without being directly involved in every transaction, but it also demands constant vigilance. Even a minor misalignment or overlooked detail could escalate into a threat. Prohibition has intensified both opportunity and risk. Alcohol flows through clandestine channels, attracting competition, ambition, and the occasional recklessness of new operators who do not yet understand the rules of the city. Lepke watches these figures silently, measuring their competence, patience, and potential threat. Those who fail are quietly removed, their absence unnoticed, but their lesson understood. Those who succeed may be incorporated, valued for usefulness, but never elevated to a status that threatens his authority. In this world, loyalty is earned, constantly verified, and rarely permanent. Within the inner workings of his organization, discipline is ingrained. Men follow routines meticulously, correct errors discreetly, and understand that trust is conditional. Lepke has cultivated a culture in which fear is secondary to expectation, and compliance is internalized rather than coerced. Mistakes are observed and corrected, not announced publicly, reinforcing efficiency without overt intimidation. The organization functions like a well-tuned machine, each member aware of the stakes and the silent expectations guiding their action. Observation is continuous and methodical. Lepke notices not only actions but inactions, hesitations, and deviations from established patterns. A missing shipment, a delayed payment, or even the subtle tone of a subordinate's report carries weight. He cross-references these anomalies with historical behavior and patterns to anticipate potential disruption. Vigilance is the cornerstone of survival. He understands that the success of the empire relies on his ability to detect and correct issues before they escalate. Financial operations are meticulously layered. Cash flows through legitimate seeming channels, obscured by multiple intermediaries. No single person has full visibility, reducing risk and exposure. Lepke monitors these flows carefully, balancing profitability with discretion. Each movement is deliberate and calculated, ensuring that liquidity is maintained while minimizing vulnerability. Money, like people, must be understood, guided, and managed with precision to avoid errors that could ripple through the system. Despite the complexity of the organization, the city continues to appear normal to the casual observer. Streets are filled with workers, deliveries proceed on schedule, and factories hum with activity. Yet every movement, every outcome, aligns with Lepke's orchestration. Influence is silent, pervasive, and enduring because it is unseen. The illusion of normalcy conceals the architecture of control that sustains it. Lepke's authority is most powerful when it is unrecognized, shaping the world without drawing attention to itself. External pressures evolve gradually but steadily. Investigators, rival operators, and unseen adversaries work with patience, connecting subtle patterns that were once undetectable. Lepke senses these forces not through confrontation but through absence, the missing report, the delayed courier, the sudden silence of someone usually reliable. These quiet signals carry more danger than overt attacks because they indicate thought, intention, and strategy. Lepke responds with calm precision, adjusting routines, reassigning responsibilities, and reinforcing compartmentalization. Subtlety ensures that the organization remains resilient without revealing its inner workings. Isolation accompanies authority. Lepke communicates sparingly with precision. Words are fragile tools. Their misuse can compromise trust and create vulnerability. Action, verification, and observation replace conversation. Loyalty is measured through performance, constantly scrutinized and verified. Even the most competent members remain under observation, their results filtered through layers of assessment before reaching him. Trust is never assumed, it is earned repeatedly. The subtlety of power is evident in the way small interventions can produce significant effects. A slight shift in the timing of a delivery, a minor adjustment in personnel, or the careful dissemination of information can alter outcomes across the organization. Lepke employs these techniques deliberately, influencing behavior indirectly and ensuring that compliance and order are maintained without overt confrontation. Fear, perception, and expectation work in concert to sustain his control. The psychological weight of constant vigilance is immense. Every decision, every correction, every observation has consequences. Mistakes magnify, errors propagate, and the smallest oversight can ripple through the network. Sleep is minimal, interrupted by calculations and assessments. Yet Lepke accepts these burdens as inherent to leadership. Authority is not passive. It is exercised continuously, carefully, and strategically. The survival of the empire relies entirely on his attention and foresight. Despite the demands, Lepke remains composed. Authority is maintained through design, foresight, and disciplined execution, not through spectacle or brute force. The organization functions predictably because it is structured to respond efficiently to pressure, incentive, and expectation. Subtle nudges, carefully applied, create alignment without the need for overt command. The empire moves like a living organism, guided by invisible hands, precise and resilient. As night falls, Lepke reflects on the duality of fragility and strength inherent in his control. The system functions efficiently, yet even minor mistakes could create cascading consequences. Vigilance, adaptation, and subtle influence preserve stability. Survival is not dependent on aggression alone, but on understanding, anticipation, and the orchestration of human behavior. Power is exercised through observation, adjustment, and foresight, maintaining balance and authority quietly yet effectively. At dawn, the city resumes its rhythm. Streets fill, factories hum, commerce continues, and life appears ordinary. Yet every meaningful action, every significant decision, is shaped by Lepke Buchalter's influence. Patterns persist, outcomes align, and authority remains silent yet absolute. His empire operates with precision, discipline, and subtlety, guided by continuous observation and strategic foresight. Lepke remains both unseen and omnipresent, a silent conductor maintaining the rhythm of the city and the stability of the world he has constructed. The city has a pulse that never wavers, a rhythm that beats through alleys, streets, and the faint hum of factories, even when the rest of the world believes it sleeps. Lepke Buchalter has spent years attuning himself to this pulse, reading it like a living document. Every deviation, however slight, tells a story. A courier arriving moments late, a subtle misalignment in delivery schedules, a muted exchange between men in shadowed corners. These are all pieces of information that shape the decisions he makes. To Lepke, the city is not a backdrop. It is a living, breathing participant in the operations he controls. By now, his empire spans nearly every relevant sector of New York's underground economy. Warehouses, unions, transport routes, financial channels, and illicit alcohol networks operate under his invisible guidance. He does not need to be present for every detail because his authority is embedded within the structure itself. Orders filter through trusted lieutenants, verified and executed with precision. No one person understands the full scope of operations, a design that ensures both efficiency and security. The complexity is deliberate. It is the framework through which influence can be exercised invisibly. The effects of prohibition continue to shape the environment around him. Alcohol flows through secret channels, creating opportunity, competition, and risk. New operators appear with ambition untempered by understanding. Lepke observes them closely, measuring their skill, patience, and intelligence. Those who falter are quietly removed, a disappearance unnoticed but consequential. Those who succeed may be absorbed strategically into his operations but are never elevated beyond their functional value. Authority, in Lepke's world, is conditional and continuously evaluated. Loyalty is performance-based, not sentimental, and is earned anew with every action. Within his organization, discipline is absolute. Men follow procedures meticulously. Mistakes are corrected silently, and trust is continuously tested. Compliance is internalized rather than enforced, though fear lingers in subtle forms. The culture values efficiency, discretion, and subtle enforcement. Mistakes are not public spectacles. They are private lessons, leaving no mark but the correction itself. In this environment, efficiency is a habit, and the organization functions like a finely tuned instrument, each member playing their part precisely, anticipating both expectation and consequence. Observation is continuous. Lepke notices not only actions but also absences, delays, and subtle shifts in behavior. A missing report, a delayed delivery, a hesitant tone, each is examined, contextualized, and cross-referenced with patterns in history. Vigilance allows him to anticipate problems before they escalate. He knows that even minor disruptions, if ignored, can ripple outward and threaten the stability of the entire network. The art of leadership in Lepke's mind lies in controlling what is seen and unseen alike. Financial operations are layered and protected. Cash flows through legitimate channels, obscured by intermediaries and transactions designed to mask the source and destination. No single person has full visibility, reducing risk and exposure. Lepke monitors every flow carefully, balancing liquidity with discretion. Each movement is deliberate, calculated, and constantly evaluated. Profit is essential, but security is paramount. Money, like people, must be managed strategically, guided by oversight and shielded from error. The city maintains an illusion of normalcy. Streets fill with workers, deliveries are made, businesses function, all seemingly unaffected by the web of influence beneath them. Yet every outcome aligns with Lepke's orchestration. Influence is most potent when invisible. The perception of ordinary life conceals the intricate machinery sustaining it. Lepke's authority thrives precisely because it is silent, pervasive, and unnoticed. The success of his empire lies not in spectacle, but in subtle manipulation and anticipation. External pressures grow slowly but steadily. Investigators and rival operators probe, watch, and connect patterns that were once invisible. Lepke detects these pressures in the quiet disruptions: a delayed courier, a missing report, a sudden change in behavior. These signals are more dangerous than open attacks because they indicate intelligence and intent. His response is measured and deliberate. Routines are adjusted, responsibilities rotated, compartmentalization reinforced. Subtle, indirect influence is more effective than confrontation. The organization remains resilient because its structure and discipline are constantly refined. Isolation accompanies leadership. Lepke speaks sparingly, only when necessary. Words are dangerous. They can betray, mislead, or compromise trust. Action, observation, and verification replace conversation. Loyalty is earned through performance and continually observed. Even the most capable subordinates remain under scrutiny, filtered through layers of observation and confirmation. Trust is provisional and must be demonstrated repeatedly. The fewer assumptions he relies on, the stronger the system remains. The subtle manipulation of outcomes is a hallmark of his power. A small adjustment in timing, a slight redistribution of responsibility, or a carefully managed perception can alter events across the organization. Lepke employs these tactics continuously, ensuring alignment without drawing attention. Fear, perception, and expectation operate in tandem to sustain order. Control is exercised quietly, efficiently, and with remarkable precision. The psychological weight of constant vigilance is unrelenting. Every decision, correction, and observation carries consequences that echo outward. Mistakes magnify, errors propagate, and disruption can spread quickly. Sleep is minimal, interrupted by calculations and contingency planning. Yet Lepke bears this weight with composure, understanding that influence demands awareness, foresight, and strategic attention. Authority is active, It must be exercised consistently, with patience and precision. Despite the intensity, Lepke remains calm and composed. Authority is maintained not through spectacle or violence alone, but through foresight, planning, and disciplined execution. The organization functions predictably because it is designed to respond to pressure, incentive, and subtle guidance. Subtle nudges create alignment, maintaining order without the need for overt command. The empire moves like a living organism, guided by invisible hands and sustained by the quiet efficiency of its design. Nightfall brings reflection. Lepke contemplates the fragility and strength of his control. The system operates efficiently, but even minor mistakes could produce cascading consequences. Vigilance, adaptability, and careful influence preserve stability. Survival does not depend on force alone. It depends on understanding, anticipation, and the orchestration of behavior. Power is exercised through observation, subtle intervention, and careful management of perception, maintaining order without revealing the hands that enforce it. As dawn approaches, the city awakens. Streets fill with workers, factories resume operations, commerce continues, and life appears ordinary. Yet, every meaningful action, every significant outcome, is shaped by Lepke's invisible guidance. Patterns persist, results align, and authority remains silent but absolute. The empire functions with precision, discipline, and subtlety, maintained by constant vigilance and strategic foresight. Lepke Buchalter exists both as an unseen force and an omnipresent observer, guiding the rhythm of the city and ensuring the enduring stability of the world he controls. The city never truly sleeps, and neither does its most silent observer, Lepke Buchalter. He moves through its streets as if carried by the rhythm of its pulse, invisible yet profoundly attuned to every vibration that might indicate opportunity or threat. A flicker of movement behind a warehouse, a whisper of altered delivery schedules, the subtle hesitation of a subordinate, all of these are signals, pieces of information that others miss entirely. To Lepke, the city is not merely a backdrop for operations, it is an intricate, living system whose every movement can be read and interpreted. By now, Lepke's influence stretches across nearly every aspect of the underground economy. Warehouses, unions, transport routes, financial networks, and alcohol distribution channels are all coordinated through carefully maintained layers of lieutenants and intermediaries. No single person sees the full picture, which both secures the organization and allows Lepke to exert control without being directly involved in every action. Orders are filtered, verified, and executed with precision. The empire functions like a living organism, guided silently by its architect, yet appearing seamless and ordinary to the outside world. The era of prohibition continues to fuel both profit and risk. Alcohol flows through hidden networks, generating competition, ambition, and occasional recklessness among new operators who underestimate the stakes. Lepke observes them quietly, evaluating competence, patience, and foresight. Those who fail are quietly removed, their absence unnoticed yet consequential. Those who succeed are integrated cautiously, valued for their utility, but never allowed a position that could challenge his authority. In Lepke's world, loyalty is earned and continuously tested. Sentimentality is a luxury no operator can afford. Discipline within the organization is absolute. Routines are executed without question, errors corrected quietly, and trust constantly verified. Compliance is internalized, enforced by the culture rather than overt fear. The organization is structured for efficiency, discretion, and subtle influence. Mistakes are corrected privately, leaving no mark but the lesson learned. Each member understands the stakes, anticipates consequences, and acts in alignment with expectations. The system operates like a finely tuned instrument, each component responding predictably to both external and internal pressures. Observation is meticulous and relentless. Lepke notices not only actions but also absences, delays, and subtle changes in behavior. A missing report, a late shipment, a hesitant tone H is cross-referenced with historical patterns to detect potential disruption. Anticipation is key. Small deviations, if ignored, can escalate into threats that compromise the system. Vigilance is the cornerstone of authority. Lepke understands that the survival of his empire depends entirely on his ability to detect and correct issues before they propagate. Financial operations are carefully layered to minimize exposure. Cash flows through multiple intermediaries, disguised as legitimate transactions, and no single person understands the entirety of the system. Lepke monitors these movements constantly, balancing profitability with discretion and security. Each decision is calculated and deliberate, preserving liquidity while minimizing vulnerability. Money, like human behavior, requires observation, foresight, and careful management to maintain control over outcomes. Despite the complexity of his operations, the city maintains the appearance of ordinary life. Streets bustle with commuters, deliveries arrive as expected, factories hum, and businesses function without disruption. Yet every outcome aligns with Lepke's orchestration. His influence is subtle, pervasive, and enduring precisely because it is unseen. The illusion of normalcy is his greatest weapon, concealing the intricate architecture of authority that guides the city. External pressures continue to grow, often imperceptibly. Investigators, rival operators, and unseen adversaries work quietly, connecting patterns that were once invisible. Lepke detects these forces not through overt action but through the absence of signals: a missing courier, a delayed report, a silence where there should be sound. These subtle pressures are more dangerous than open attacks because they indicate intelligence, patience, and strategy. Lepke's responses are calculated, routines are adjusted, responsibilities rotated, and compartmentalization reinforced. Subtlety ensures that the organization remains resilient without revealing its mechanisms. Isolation is an inescapable reality of power. Lepke speaks sparingly, deliberately, aware that every word carries weight and potential risk. Action, verification, and observation replace conversation. Loyalty is earned through performance, continuously measured and never assumed. Even the most capable subordinates remain under scrutiny, filtered through layers of verification. Trust is provisional and must be demonstrated repeatedly. The fewer assumptions he makes, the stronger the organization remains. Lepke's mastery lies in the subtle manipulation of outcomes. Small adjustments, a change in timing, a shift in responsibility, a careful managed perception can produce significant effects across the organization. Fear, expectation, and perception are tools, applied consistently and discreetly. Control is exercised quietly yet effectively, ensuring compliance, alignment, and stability without revealing the hand behind it. The psychological weight of leadership is immense. Every decision, every correction, every observation has consequences that ripple outward. Mistakes magnify, errors propagate, and even minor oversights can destabilize the system. Sleep is minimal and shallow, punctuated by calculations and contingency planning. Yet Lepke bears this burden calmly, recognizing that influence requires constant awareness, foresight, and strategic attention. Authority is an active exercise, continuous and precise. Despite the intensity, Lepke remains composed. Power is maintained through design, foresight, and disciplined execution, rather than spectacle or overt aggression. The organization functions predictably because it is structured to respond to pressure, incentive, and subtle guidance. Nudges and minor adjustments produce alignment without overt command. The empire moves as a living organism, guided by invisible hands, resilient and responsive to both internal and external pressures. Night offers reflection, a momentary pause to consider fragility and strength. The system functions efficiently, yet even small mistakes could have cascading consequences. Vigilance, adaptation, and subtle intervention preserve stability. Survival does not rely solely on force but on anticipation, observation, and the orchestration of human behavior. Authority is exercised through quiet guidance, subtle correction, and strategic foresight. As dawn approaches, the city awakens once more. Streets fill with people, factories resume operations, deliveries continue, and life appears ordinary. Yet beneath this veneer, every meaningful action is shaped by Lepke Buchalter's influence. Patterns persist, outcomes align with intent, and authority remains absolute though invisible. The empire operates with precision, discipline, and subtlety, maintained by constant vigilance and strategic orchestration. Lepke exists both as an unseen force and as an omnipresent observer, guiding the rhythm of the city and preserving the continuity of his power. The city thrums with an energy that only a few can sense in its entirety. Lepke Buchalter has long attuned himself to it, reading its subtle signals as if they were lines of a manuscript written in motion. Every pause in a delivery, every diverted shipment, every slight hesitation among his men, all are indicators of shifting patterns, signs of opportunity or risk. The ordinary movements of the city conceal a complex web of influence, yet Lepke perceives it as clearly as if the city itself spoke to him. He moves through this hidden language with precision, every step calculated, every observation weighed and interpreted. By this point, his empire extends into almost every corner of New York's underground economy. Warehouses, labor unions, transport networks, financial channels, and illegal alcohol distribution are all coordinated through layers of intermediaries and trusted lieutenants. No single person sees the entirety of the system, which both protects it and allows Lepke to operate without exposing himself to unnecessary risk. Orders are filtered, verified, and executed with a precision that creates the illusion of effortless control. The organization functions like a living organism, each part responding to stimuli as intended, while Lepke remains the silent architect behind the movements. Prohibition continues to shape the environment, producing both immense opportunity and constant danger. Alcohol flows through clandestine channels, attracting ambitious newcomers and generate competition that must be observed, evaluated, and sometimes neutralized. Lepke watches silently, measuring the intelligence, patience, and resourcefulness of those who operate around him. Failures are quietly removed, leaving lessons in absence rather than spectacle. Successes may be incorporated selectively, valued for their contribution, but never allowed a status that could challenge his authority. In Lepke's realm, loyalty is measured, performance-based, and continuously reassessed. Sentiment is irrelevant. Survival depends on alignment with expectations and results. Within his inner circle, discipline is uncompromising. Routines are followed meticulously, mistakes are corrected discreetly, and trust is continuously verified. Compliance is internalized, enforced not solely through fear but through expectation, habit, and observation. The culture of the organization emphasizes efficiency, discretion, and subtle enforcement. Errors are corrected privately, reinforcing structure with overt intimidation. Each member understands that their actions affect the larger system, that anticipation and alignment are paramount, and that deviation carries consequences even if unseen. Observation extends beyond action to inaction, silence, and subtle deviation. A delayed shipment, a missing report, a subtle shift in tone, all are signals that must be interpreted. Lepke cross-references anomalies with historical patterns to anticipate potential threats. Vigilance is not optional, it is the foundation upon which the stability of his empire rests. The ability to foresee problems before they escalate is what separates survival from vulnerability. Financial operations are meticulously structured. Funds flow through multiple channels, obscured by legitimate transactions and intermediaries. No one person holds complete knowledge, reducing exposure and risk. Lepke monitors these movements, ensuring liquidity while maintaining security. Each financial decision is calculated, balancing profit with discretion. Money, like human behavior, must be guided, observed, and controlled to prevent error from cascading into vulnerability. Despite the complexity of operations, the city maintains the illusion of normalcy. Streets bustle, deliveries occur on schedule, factories hum, and businesses operate without apparent disruption. Yet every outcome aligns with Lepke's orchestration. Influence is silent and pervasive because it is unseen. The perception of ordinary life conceals the structure that ensures compliance, efficiency, and control. Lepke's authority thrives precisely because it is unrecognized. It functions quietly, subtly, and consistently. External pressures grow with increasing sophistication. Investigators, rival operators, and unseen adversaries probe and connect patterns previously undetectable. Lepke detects these pressures through absence, a missing report, an unexpected pause in communication, a delayed courier. These subtle signals are more dangerous than open attacks, as they reflect thought, strategy, and intent. His responses are deliberate. Adjustments to routines, reallocation of responsibilities, and reinforcement of compartmentalization maintain resilience without revealing the mechanisms behind them. Subtlety preserves the empire. Isolation is inherent in leadership. Lepke communicates sparingly, only when necessary. Words are vulnerable. They can mislead, betray, or compromise trust. Action, observation, and verification replace verbal reassurance. Loyalty is earned through consistent performance and verified continuously. Even trusted subordinates remain under observation, their output filtered through multiple layers before reaching his awareness. Assumptions are minimized, and trust is provisional. The fewer assumptions, the stronger the organization. The subtlety of influence defines Lepke's power. Small interventions, a minor change in timing, a shift in responsibility, a careful conveyed suggestion can produce ripple effects across the organization. Fear, perception, and expectation act in concert to maintain order. Control is exercised quietly, efficiently, and with precision, ensuring that alignment and compliance are sustained without drawing attention to the source. The psychological burden of constant vigilance is unrelenting. Every decision, correction, and observation carries consequences that extend beyond immediate events. Mistakes magnify, errors propagate, and even minor oversights can destabilize the system. Sleep is minimal and fragmented, punctuated by continuous evaluation, planning, and observation. Yet Lepke bears this burden with calm, recognizing that influence requires active, continuous awareness and foresight. Authority is not passive, it is a skill exercised persistently and precisely. Even amid these pressures, Lepke remains composed. Authority is maintained through foresight, design, and disciplined execution rather than spectacle or force alone. The organization functions predictably because it is structured to respond efficiently to pressure, incentives, and subtle guidance. Minor adjustments, nudges, and manipulations ensure alignment and order without overt direction. The empire moves as a living organism, resilient, adaptive, and guided by invisible hands. Night brings reflection, A brief moment to consider the balance between strength and fragility. The system functions efficiently, yet even a minor mistake could produce cascading consequences. Vigilance, adaptability, and subtle intervention sustain stability. Survival does not rely solely on force. It depends on observation, anticipation, and the orchestration of human behavior. Power is exercised through correction, subtle influence, and strategic foresight. As dawn breaks, the city awakens again. Streets fill, factories resume operations, deliveries continue, and life seems ordinary. Yet every significant action, every consequential decision, is shaped by Lepke Buchalter's influence. Patterns persist, outcomes reflect intent, and authority remains silent yet absolute. The empire functions with discipline, precision, and subtlety, maintained by constant vigilance and strategic orchestration. Lepke exists both as an unseen force and as an omnipresent observer guiding the city's rhythm and sustaining the continuity of his influence. The city pulses in rhythms invisible to most, but Lepke Buchalter perceives every nuance. He moves as if in sync with its heartbeat, aware of shifts in energy, whispers in shadow, streets, and subtle signals that reveal the intentions of those around him. Every delayed delivery, every hesitation in a subordinate's tone, every flicker of light in a warehouse tells a story, offers insight, and demands action. For Lepke, the city is alive in a way most could never understand. It communicates, signals, and reacts. He reads it all, silently, meticulously, and with absolute control over how he engages the information it provides. His empire, vast, intricate, spans nearly every facet of New York's underground economy, from labor unions and warehouses to transportation networks, financial operations, and illicit alcohol distribution. Every operation is carefully orchestrated. Orders flow through layers of trusted lieutenants and intermediaries, verified and executed with precision. No one person knows the full scope of operations, providing both security and efficiency. Lepke's control is not about being present everywhere. It is about embedding authority into the system itself so that the organization moves as a living, responsive entity, guided by invisible hands. Prohibition continues to reshape the city, generating opportunity and danger in equal measure. Alcohol flows through hidden channels, drawing both ambition and recklessness from newcomers who underestimate the stakes. Lepke observes silently, evaluating skill, patience, and judgment. Those who fail are quietly removed, their absence noticed only by subtle shifts in operation. Those who succeed are integrated carefully, valued for their usefulness, but never granted authority that might challenge Lepke's supremacy. In his world, loyalty is conditional, performance-based, and constantly reassessed. Sentiment is irrelevant. Survival depends on alignment with expectation and consistent results. Within his organization, discipline is absolute. Routines are followed precisely, errors corrected discreetly, and trust is continually verified. Compliance is internalized, enforced not just by fear, but through culture, observation, and expectation. The organization emphasizes efficiency, discretion, and subtle control. Mistakes are addressed privately, leaving no outward mark beyond the correction itself. Every member understands that their actions have consequences not only for themselves but for the larger structure, and anticipation of both expectation and consequence is essential. Observation is constant and meticulous. Lepke notices both action and inaction, hesitation and absence. A delayed shipment, a missing report, or even a subtle inflection in communication carries meaning. He cross-references anomalies with historical patterns, anticipating potential disruption before it arises. Vigilance is non-negotiable. The stability of the empire depends entirely on early detection and decisive intervention. The art of leadership, in Lepke's view, is controlling both what is seen and unseen, shaping outcomes without exposing the mechanism behind them. Financial operations are layered and protected with precision. Money flows through multiple intermediaries, masked by legitimate transactions. No single person sees the full system, limiting exposure and risk. Lepke monitors these movements continuously, balancing liquidity with discretion and security. Each transaction is deliberate, ensuring that profit is maximized without creating vulnerability. Money, like personnel, must be managed strategically, guided by oversight, and shielded from misstep to prevent cascading consequences. Despite the complexity of his operations, the city maintains the illusion of normalcy. Streets fill with workers, deliveries arrive punctually, factories hum, and businesses operate as if untouched by the invisible web beneath them. Yet every outcome aligns with Lepke's orchestration. Influence is silent and pervasive precisely because it is unseen. The perception of ordinary life conceals the intricate machinery that ensures compliance, efficiency, and control. Lepke's authority is strongest when it is unrecognized, quietly guiding the system without the need for overt displays of power. External pressures grow, increasingly subtle and sophisticated. Investigators, rival operators, and hidden adversaries act with patience, connecting patterns that were once invisible. Lepke detects these forces through the absence of signals he expects: a missing report, a delayed courier, a silence where there should be sound. These indirect pressures are often more dangerous than open attacks, indicating intelligence, strategy, and intent. Lepke's response is deliberate. Routines are adjusted, responsibilities rotated, and compartmentalization reinforced. Subtlety ensures resilience without revealing the inner workings of the empire. Isolation is an inherent aspect of authority. Lepke communicates sparingly, only when necessary. Words are vulnerable. They can mislead, betray, or compromise trust. Action, observation, and verification replace dialogue. Loyalty is earned through performance, continually measured and reassessed. Even the most capable subordinates remain under scrutiny, their output filtered through layers of observation. Trust is provisional, contingent, and must be demonstrated repeatedly. Assumptions are minimized. The fewer he relies on, the stronger the system becomes. The subtlety of influence defines Lepke's control. Small interventions adjusting timing, redistributing responsibility, or careful shaping perception produce ripple effects across the organization. Fear, perception, and expectation operate in tandem to sustain order. Control is exercised quietly, efficiently, and precisely, ensuring that alignment and compliance are maintained without the need for overt command. The empire moves as a living organism, responsive and disciplined, guided by invisible hands. The psychological burden of constant vigilance is immense. Every decision, adjustment, and observation carries consequences that extend far beyond the immediate. Mistakes magnify, errors propagate, and minor oversights can destabilize the entire system. Sleep is minimal, fragmented by calculations, assessments, and contingency planning. Yet Lepke endures this weight calmly, knowing that authority demands constant attention, foresight, and strategic execution. Influence is not passive, it is an active skill, exercised continuously and deliberately. Even amid the relentless demands, Lepke remains composed. Authority is maintained through foresight, planning, and disciplined execution rather than spectacle or force. The organization functions predictably because it is designed to respond efficiently to pressure, incentive, and subtle guidance. Nudges and minor corrections create alignment without overt direction. The empire operates like a living organism, adaptive, resilient, and guided by silent orchestration. Night offers a brief period of reflection. Lepke contemplates the balance between fragility and strength, recognizing that the system functions efficiently, yet even minor errors could cascade into serious disruption. Vigilance, subtle intervention, and adaptability preserve stability. Survival does not depend solely on aggression. It depends on anticipation, observation, and the orchestration of human behavior. Authority is exercised through subtle correction, observation, and strategic foresight. As dawn arrives, the city awakens. Streets fill with workers, factories hum, deliveries proceed, and life appears ordinary. Yet beneath the surface, every significant action, every meaningful decision is guided by Lepke Buchalter's influence. Patterns persist, outcomes align with intention, and authority remains silent, but absolute. The empire functions with precision, discipline, and subtlety, maintained through constant vigilance and careful orchestration. Lepke exists both as an unseen force and an omnipresent observer, sustaining the rhythm of the city and the continuity of his empire. The city has always moved with a rhythm that only a few could truly hear. Lepke Buchalter had spent years attuning himself to that rhythm, learning its subtle pulses and silent signals, understanding its hidden conversations, and anticipating the consequences of every minor deviation. To him, New York was not merely a collection of streets and buildings. It was a living organism, responsive and delicate, capable of sustaining influence or revealing vulnerabilities depending on who controlled its flow. But this final chapter, Lepke's empire has reached both its zenith and its greatest peril, a culmination of decades of planning, observation, and strategic orchestration. The complexity of his operations is staggering. Warehouses, unions, distribution routes, financial networks, and illicit liquor channels are all interconnected, layered with intermediaries, and designed to operate independently yet cohesively. No single person understands the entirety of the network, which ensures both efficiency and security. Lepke's control is embedded into the system itself, allowing it to function seamlessly even when he is not directly present. Orders filter through trusted lieutenants, verified and executed with precision, creating the illusion of effortless power. Yet behind this illusion lies relentless observation, subtle manipulation, and absolute discipline. Prohibition has continued to shape the city's underground economy, creating opportunities as well as threats. Alcohol flows through clandestine channels, and new players emerge constantly, driven by ambition, naivety, or desperation. Lepke watches silently, evaluating skill, patience, and judgment. Those who fail are quietly eliminated, their absence leaving lessons that are understood without spectacle. Those who succeed are carefully integrated, valued for their utility, but never given authority that could threaten the delicate balance he maintains. In Lepke's world, loyalty is conditional, constantly tested, and measured against the relentless standard of performance. Sentimentality has no place. Survival and influence demand precision and reliability. Discipline within the organization is unwavering. Men follow routines meticulously, mistakes are corrected discreetly, and trust is continuously verified. Compliance is internalized rather than coerced, reinforced by the culture of observation and expectation. Errors are addressed quietly, leaving only the lesson and not the embarrassment. Every member understands that their actions influence not just immediate outcomes but the stability of the entire empire. The organization operates like a finely tuned instrument, each individual responding predictably to both internal and external pressures. Observation is constant, extending beyond overt actions to include silence, hesitation, and absence. A delayed shipment, a missing report, or a subtle shift in tone all carry significance. Lepke cross-references these anomalies with historical patterns to anticipate and mitigate threats. Vigilance is not a choice, it is a necessity. The survival of the empire rests on the ability to detect disruption before it spreads. Lepke's mastery lies in controlling both the visible and invisible aspects of his world, shaping outcomes without revealing the mechanisms behind them. Financial operations are equally meticulous. Cash flows through multiple channels, disguised as legitimate transactions and filtered through intermediaries. No single individual has full visibility, reducing risk and exposure. Lepke monitors these flows continuously, ensuring liquidity, minimizing vulnerability, and maintaining the integrity of the network. Every financial decision is deliberate, balancing profit with security. Money, like people, must be guided, observed, and controlled to prevent errors from cascading into chaos. The city itself maintains the illusion of ordinary life. Streets are crowded, deliveries are punctual, factories hum, and businesses operate without interruption. Yet beneath this veneer, every outcome aligns with Lepke's orchestration. Influence is silent and pervasive because it is unseen. The perception of normalcy is the empire's greatest safeguard, concealing the complex machinery that ensures compliance, efficiency, and control. Lepke's authority thrives precisely because it operates without recognition, guiding the flow of events invisibly. External pressures intensify, subtle yet persistent. Investigators, rival operators, and unseen adversaries probe, observing patterns that once seemed invisible. Lepke senses these threats through silence: the delayed courier, the missing report, a sudden absence in the flow of information. These indirect pressures are often more dangerous than open confrontation because they indicate planning, intelligence, and intent. Lepke's response is methodical. Routines are adjusted, responsibilities rotated, and compartmentalization reinforced. Subtle influence preserves resilience without revealing the inner workings of the empire. Isolation accompanies authority. Lepke communicates sparingly, only when necessary, knowing that words can betray or mislead. Action, observation, and verification replace dialogue. Loyalty is earned through performance, continuously scrutinized and tested. Even his most competent associates are observed, their actions filtered through multiple layers of verification. Trust is provisional, and assumptions are minimized. The stronger the system, the less it depends on faith alone. The more it relies on constant observation and adaptation. Power, in Lepke's hands, is subtle yet absolute. Small interventions, a shift in responsibility, an adjustment in timing, a carefully conveyed message can create cascading effects throughout the organization. Fear, perception, and expectation operate in unison to maintain alignment and compliance. Control is exercised quietly, efficiently, and precisely, allowing outcomes to conform to his intent without overt command. The organization operates like a living organism, responsive and disciplined, guided by invisible hands. The psychological weight of constant vigilance is immense. Every decision, correction, and observation has consequences that extend far beyond the immediate. Mistakes amplify, errors propagate, and even minor lapses can destabilize the network. Sleep is brief, fragmented by calculation, contingency planning, and observation. Yet, Lepke endures, understanding that influence demands continuous attention, foresight, and strategic management. Authority is not passive, it is active, deliberate, and persistent. Despite these pressures, Lepke remains composed. Authority is maintained through foresight, planning, and disciplined execution rather than spectacle or aggression. The organization functions predictably because it is structured to respond to pressure, incentive, and subtle guidance. Minor corrections, nudges, and adjustments produce alignment without over-direction. The empire moves like a living organism, adaptive, resilient, and guided by silent orchestration. Night offers reflection, the rare opportunity to contemplate both fragility and strength. The system functions efficiently, yet even a minor mistake could have cascading consequences. Vigilance, adaptability, and subtle influence preserve stability. Survival does not depend solely on force. It depends on anticipation, observation, and orchestration. Authority is exercised through correction, subtle intervention, and careful management of perception. As dawn breaks, the city awakens. Streets fill, factories hum, deliveries proceed, and life seems ordinary. Yet every meaningful action, every consequential outcome, is shaped by Lepke Buchalter's invisible hand. Patterns persist, outcomes align with intent, and authority remains absolute despite its silence. The empire operates with precision, discipline, and subtlety, maintained through constant vigilance and strategic orchestration. Lepke exists as both an unseen force and an omnipresent observer, guiding the city's rhythm, safeguarding his influence, and leaving a legacy of power exercised with intelligence, subtlety, and enduring control.